Are you filling out your W-4 form correctly? You could be doing it wrong and you can get into trouble if you're not doing it correctly. Keep listening so I can guide you correctly on how to fill out your W-4 form. For many years, we had a way of filling out our W-4 form. Prior to 2018, we used to fill out the number of exemptions that we used to have that we would claim in our tax return. We would count ourselves as an exemption, we would count our children, our husband, and so that we would, fill out that W-4 form and we would put 5 exemptions. As of 2018, we don't do that anymore. The only people that we're supposed to put on our W-4 form are actual dependents. So anybody who is under the age of 17, 0 to 16, who we call a dependent, a person who gets to claim the child tax credit. Now, there's different type of dependents too. We can have a child that is 17 years old and still a dependent, and they're still going to be a dependent until they're way into college. But now they don't get that full child tax credit. What they get is the ODC, the other dependent credit, which is $500. So anytime there's a change in your family status, you have to make sure that you're updating that W-4 form with your employer. So what happens when you don't fill it out correctly? So when there isn't enough withholding being taken out during every paycheck, at the end of the year, the IRS is going to say, I want my money. You didn't give me my money throughout the year, so I'm going to take it. So that's why it's important to make sure that you are filling out that W-4 form correctly. What happens when there isn't enough income or enough withholding throughout the year? That means you're underpaying your tax liability. Your tax liability is calculated by your taxable income, which is your wages minus your deductions. Then that determines your taxable income. When your taxable income also is calculated, you are calculating your tax bracket. Where do you fall on that line? The smallest tax bracket is 10%. So if you, after your deductions, you're at $20,000 of taxable income, that means that you're only gonna get taxed $2,000 is your tax liability. So $2,000 is going to be your tax liability, that 10%. If you don't have enough withholding that was held throughout the whole year and you don't meet that, let's say you only had $1,000 of withholding throughout the year, that means you still need to pay $1,000 more. Now, if you have dependents and you have, other credits that are going to be applied to that tax liability, then you might be safe. But if you're somebody that's single, doesn't have any kids, doesn't really have any high deductions, then you're gonna get stuck paying that tax liability. And then you don't want to do that. It's easier to have those payments be taken out throughout the year. That way you don't feel the heavy burden of paying your tax liability at the end of the year, or should we say at the beginning of the year when you have to do your taxes, right? So make sure that you're always filling out your W-4 form correctly. Now, if you are a Spanish speaker, those forms are available in Spanish also, so you can have somebody to help you. Make sure that you're also filling out the correct W-4 form. There is every year, and because law changes very consistently nowadays, we want to make sure that we're filling out the correct form. You also want to keep up to date with tax law. Sometimes we hear a lot of things that's going on. There's always going to be changes. Lately with this new federal government, a lot of changes are taking place. So you want to make sure that you're always up to date. Always make sure that you do your own research. Ask your payroll company, your payroll department, if you're doing that correctly. Also, too, if you're a small business owner and you do your own payroll and you're not really that knowledgeable in that subject, you want to make sure that you're reaching out to your payroll company who does your payroll to make sure that you are relaying this information correctly to your employees. You want to make sure that at the end of the year, you have the correct information, that there's any changes in their family statuses. That way, you're not to blame for things that is going to occur at tax time. So make sure that you're always being proactive and are building that rapport with your employees or even with your payroll company to make sure that they're educating you on what needs to be done at year end to prepare for tax season. Another thing that I see is that people exempt. Exempt is only good if you know you're going to make less than the standard deduction amount. Because if your income is $14,000 and the standard deduction is $14,000, then you have no tax liability. Zero. You don't owe anything to the IRS. But if you're not sure, just don't exempt. So you just want to make sure that you're not exempting, even just for our kids. Our kids start to work and, they are new at filling out these forms. Make sure that they're putting single and zero, because then they get very greedy. Our children like to make that money. They start seeing those paychecks, they start seeing those direct deposits, and they like that. They start working, they start picking up shifts, and next thing you know, they're making $16,000, $17,000 a year, which is okay. That's good. We want to make sure that they're working, but we also want to make sure that they're getting the correct amount of withholding taken out of their paychecks. And also, this works as a little savings for them too. Even though they're still a dependent on your tax return, they have to process their own tax return. And this will get them in the habit so that every time they have a new job, they're filling out that W-4 form correctly. And so what happens? At the end of the year, they're going to process their tax return. Because they overpaid, they're going to get back a refund, and that's going to make them feel good about themselves. It's going to say, wow, I'm doing things wrong. Taxes, it's okay to do your taxes. We're very familiarized with, oh my God, taxes is a big scary thing to do. I'm getting older. I have a W-2 form now and I have to see a tax preparer. Or the dreadful, let me do it on TurboTax. We don't want to train our children to do their taxes on TurboTax. It's better for them to see your accountant or a tax professional that's going to guide them and give them these new tools and resources to be able to prepare correctly throughout the year. So we want to make sure we're doing that. So at the end of the year, when your child does their taxes, they're going to feel okay and they're going to feel good about receiving that refund at the end of the year. And then every year they're going to say, yay, I'm ready to do my taxes. Let's go see Priscilla at Midwest Bookkeeping, or let me see somebody. Let me go with my mom, or let me go with my dad, because that's the way to go. That's the best way and the best thing to do. So to recap, we want to make sure that we are filling correctly the W-4 form. Remember, the W-4 form is the one that we fill out when we start an employment or a new job. And then the W-2 form is the one that we get at the end of the year, calculating all our wages, and the one that we use to take to do our taxes. And we want to make sure that we are filling that correctly, because what can happen is that you're going to have to pay more taxes, or you're going to have to pay the IRS at the end of the year if you don't fill out that form correctly. So if you have any questions, we are more than happy to help you here at Midwest Bookkeeping. Please make sure to like, share, and keep watching us. So thank you so much.